substantial work lies ahead. You have indeed substantial work ahead. And the personal remark is, I appreciate the courtesy and cooperation and most of all the trust which were shown to me. And very rapidly, I sensed a real bond with you folks. And that, for me, was a personal satisfaction. So that's my report, and I'd be happy to try to respond to any questions. Or whatever.
Council, staff, either one?
You referenced hiring freeze. Just want clarification, general fund, enterprise fund. You also alluded to cost of service driving the rates.
Right.
Obviously, we haven't backfilled an FTE in the water utility.
Mm-hmm.
More explanation there, general fund.
Sure.
Enterprise.
Under the circumstances that you have before you, first of all, I would suggest that you bring Mr. Scott in the picture and ask his views. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I would not adopt or recommend a rigid, every single position, no matter what happens, is frozen. But I would look at every time there is a vacancy of any nature, analytically with an eye towards, well, what's the need? Is that the best way to do the work in 2010 and 2011? Are there alternative ways to get this done? Can we combine some functions, with just some creativity? I think that the city administrator and the HR person and the affected department head should be right in the middle of that. And then the basics of that should be reported back to council. Call it a check-in. Now, some of these things will be pretty simple. We have a water utility worker. We're convinced that that's the way to get the work done. The source of funding is from the water utility, and this is pretty straightforward. So this little check-in, we recommend that we refill the position, and boom, you move ahead instead of, 6 months of discussion hurts the operation of the system. There may be others where the staffers kind of sit back and brainstorm with one another and with mayor and the city administrator, and they figure out a little better way to do things. And I don't mean that the way we did it before is bad, it's just a way that's better fitted to 2011 and 2012. I think Mr. Lewis's analysis showed that Washougal had remarkable revenue growth for 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 6 years. That made a lot of things probably easier. Those days, that was then, and we know what now looks like.
I might just add, I'd like to call that kind of approach a hiring squeeze instead of a hiring freeze, so you kind of keep a hold on things. I think you certainly do look at the funding, and each context is its own context. What's really challenging, though, is when you get a vacancy in a generally funded position and you're in the middle of a challenging process to identify significant savings, 10%. I guess 6 of that's been done, and so there's another 4 big numbers. And you don't want to make a decision in the immediacy and then have to reverse it as you're moving forward and you make some cuts. So you have to step back a little bit strategically, but it's I just concur, it's very case specific, and it's very difficult, because you want to be appropriate with where you're staffing, and when you back off from your staffing, you want to do it in a strategic way and not a random way. And sometimes that's what a hiring freeze does to you, is because the positions become available not in some strategic way, but in some, not necessarily random, but they just happen to you. And as an organization, and I'm glad to hear about the teamwork and the team approach that everyone is taking, you have to be able to look at that together. And so some folks' vacancies will be filled and some will not, and it's a function of getting it done together strategically. Are there a number of vacancies? I guess I'll find out next week. Haven't seen that report yet.
I'm fascinated. We threw this back and forth to one another. We did not rehearse in any way. David, for me, it convinces me they do send us all to the same schools,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, the approaches are, tried and true, but they're unique to each community, absolutely. That's an excellent question, it comes up all the time, anytime you're looking at Trevor, anytime you're looking at squeezes or freezes, how do we approach that, what are we trying to get done? Where's the money?
We do have, I had Jim resend the workup that they did on the engineer's position to bring forward. I want to make sure and run that through. David, certainly not only from his new role, but also as from perspective of an engineer as well, and see how quickly we can bring that forward to council if that's the direction it's headed.
It was a remarkable piece of work on the engineering that the staff put together, and I didn't reprint this with all its detail in my report. But it was a remarkable piece of work, and
That also was vetted with collaboration. I think Monty helped him with that as well and did some.
and Battleground.
Yeah.
This was a little testing. Let's test the ideas with other jurisdictions. Did I miss the second part of your question? I think I did. No?
Good. Other questions, comments?
Just wanted to extend my thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna ask you, Ricky, how big your city pin collection is, in order to always have the right one to wear to the right meeting at the right evening.
There's a security guard up at Olympia, in one of the legislative buildings that Nabil introduced us to, and he was very good about being able, whenever Nabil was there, he had our pin on.
Yeah.
And until Lloyd walked up, and within a few minutes, he had a Camus pin. And I think he has over 200 pins.
Lloyd threw him a bit of a curve this year at AWC. He walked up and, well, he was stuck. But you can refer to us as we anytime you have that pin on, or.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for the assignment. I'm very grateful.
Thank you
Thank
again
you.
for coming through as well.
No, I think you've provided us with a lot of good insights and really maybe some steps moving forward, a lot of work ahead of us. But you have to really know the scope of the work and some ways that you tackle it to make that work possible. So I think you've provided us with some pathways forward.
Thank you again. Last fast items. Loaves and fishes. I'd hold this up, other than the fact that their luncheon is tomorrow, and I want to make sure and get RJ to seal this puppy so we can hand it to him tomorrow. Proclamation for Meals on Wheels Week, whereas the city of Washougal congratulates Loaves and Fishes Center for 40 years of serving seniors. Since 2006, Loaves and Fishes Centers have provided senior nutrition programs throughout Clark County, serving homebound seniors with Meals on Wheels and many seniors at 8 centers across Clark County. Whereas the city of Washougal supports Loaves and Fishes Center, Meals on Wheels people, and share its vision that no senior will go hungry or experience social isolation. And whereas the Clark County Loaves and Fishes Centers will be holding its second annual luncheon on Tuesday, April 27, 2010. Now therefore, I, Sean Gard, Mayor of Washougal, do hereby proclaim the week of April 26th as Meals on Wheels Week, and urge all citizens and businesses of Washougal to support the work of Loaves and Fishes Centers by participating as a sponsor for this event and joining us at the luncheon.